and a very, very good day to all of you present here today. My name is Abhilash, and I am from the AD Solutions team here at Manage Engine, and I will be your presenter for today. Right. Now, before we go ahead and jump in, I would like to thank all of you for taking out the time amongst your busy schedules. I understand this is still just a Wednesday, and I'd like to personally thank each and every one of you for making the time, for taking out the time, and for joining in on today's webinar. Now, before we go ahead and jump in and we take a look at what we have new in ADAudit Plus, I just wanted to run a quick audio and a video check because I'm working from home. I'm pretty sure most of you out here are working from home as well. And I just wanted to make sure that the audio and the video are all proper and none of you are missing out on anything. So if my voice is well and audible without any distortion or without any breakage in the audio, if you could give me a confirmation using the chat window or using the Q&A tab, that would be very, very helpful. Just say yes, just say okay, just say good to go so I can confirm that my voice is reaching to you well and clear. Just waiting on a few confirmations. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ria. Looks like everything is okay. Thank you, Richmond. Thank you, Mohammed. All right, looks like everything is okay. I hope you guys can see the title and my email ID as well. And at any point in time, if you feel the audio is cutting away or there's a certain lag between the audio and the video, just let me know and I'll do my best to get that fixed from my end as soon as possible. All right. So the topic for today is what's new webinar in ADAudit Plus this time. Now, I'm pretty sure you would have attended yesterday's session where I think yesterday's session was about AD Self-Service Plus. Today's session will be about ADAudit Plus, and the next 2 consecutive days, various people from our team will be talking about what's brand new, what's improved, what's enhanced in our respective products. So today's session is all about ADAudit Plus. What's new in ADAudit Plus? What are the enhancements we've made? How have we made ADAudit Plus more secure? And how have we improved support in ADAudit Plus for various devices in your network, right? So why this webinar series? Why do we spend time conducting a What's New webinar series? Is pretty simple. Most of you are already users of ADAudit Plus, and I'd like to thank you all for that. And some of you are new, but most of you have been with us from the beginning. And it's important that there is a session conducted every now and then for you to know the improvements in ADAudit Plus, the enhancements in ADAudit Plus, and how you could leverage it to better audit and administer your network, right? And we spend a lot of time working with ADAudit Plus, studying the current attack landscape, studying the current auditing landscape, renewing ADAudit Plus with new features and enhancements, so you can benefit the most from it. And eventually, your experience in working with ADAudit Plus becomes more smooth and becomes more user-friendly, right? So what will we be covering today? Today's webinar is about everything new, right? So like I said, from the year 2020, this is 2021, we've added more auditing features in ADAudit Plus. That's the first point. Number 2 is we've improved the security of ADAudit Plus. Now, what most organizations fear is if an application or a software like ADAudit Plus is installed, many organizations now have the fear that this application or this software can be misused for the bad or can be used for other reasons than what it is supposed to be used for. So what we've done is we've also improved the security of ADAudit Plus as a software in your environment as well. So ADAudit Plus will only be used for what it's supposed to be used for and not for any illegal or any malicious purposes, right? In ADAudit Plus, we now support a wider range of devices. This is something we keep working on. So ADAudit Plus supports many devices out of the box, but with a few add-on licenses, you can take ADAudit Plus and you can use it to audit your other devices as well, which we will discuss in today's webinar. And yes, there are a few existing features in ADAudit Plus, something you have been working with so far, and we've improved those features. We've enhanced those existing capabilities as well, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. what are the new features in ADAudit Plus? What do we have in store? The first and the most important thing I wanted to talk about was PowerShell script block and module auditing. Right now, this is a report in ADAudit Plus that is often ignored, that's often not leveraged to the most of its abilities. So I just thought this report would be the best thing to start today's session with. So why is PowerShell script block and module auditing important? Let me show you a quick example right here. Right. So I have my domain controller here, and I'm logged in as the administrator, right? But do bear in mind that what I'm going to show you now can be performed by a normal user, by a non-privileged user, by a standard user as well. So it needed to be the administrator, it needed to be the domain controller, it could be any user on any server in your network. And here's what I'm going to show you, right? So I'm going to import a module. It's called domain password spray.ps1. What's this module? This module is basically a PowerShell script that I have on my desktop right here, right? And I'm going to invoke a command that basically is invoke domain password spray. And we have a password here, that's password at 123, right? Once I hit enter, you can see the password spray has started. And once I hit yes, I'm pretty sure you would have guessed this attack. We have a few Active Directory users and their plain text passwords. Right now, why am I showing you this attack? Why am I talking about the importance of PowerShell, and why did I show you a PowerShell script? The point is simple. Most attacks these days, be it ransomware attacks, be it attacks on Active Directory or Azure AD infrastructures, be it attacks on your Windows servers, most of them are script based, right? And PowerShell is a scripting environment, is a shell that is widely used in most environments. Most Windows machines come built in with PowerShell, and attackers are leveraging PowerShell to perform attacks, to get information from your infrastructures like Active Directory, and not just that, to even use a PowerShell script to persist and hide inside your networks, right? Because in most cases, PowerShell scripts are authorized. PowerShell is an administrator's tool. PowerShell is a whitelisted tool. So most antiviruses, they do not detect PowerShell scripts, right? Not just a password spray attack. You can use PowerShell to get more information as well. For example, get any group member, and I'm going to give it a name of the group, and I'm going to call that group the administrators group, right? And within a few seconds, what's going to happen is I will get a list of all the members in the administrators group. And this can be done by any user, not just your administrator, but any user in your Active Directory environment can extract information from Active Directory, can also launch attacks on Active Directory like the password spray attack I showed you, and the list goes on, right? It is stated that 95% of PowerShell scripts that are found on the internet are actually malicious, right? Symantec reported these stats just last year. And as you can see, we have all the members of the administrators group right in front of us, right? So there are many ways PowerShell attacks can actually happen. And as you can see, we've worked on something else for you, where we worked on a slide deck actually, where how PowerShell can be actually leveraged as a malicious tool. We've uploaded this slide deck on LinkedIn, so you can check it out. And the slide deck will tell you everything you need to know about how PowerShell can be leveraged as a cyber attack tool. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly leave a link to this in the chat window. So do take a look at it. And if it comes in handy, ADAudit Plus can help audit PowerShell for you, right? So yeah, there are many reasons why PowerShell is leveraged in attacks. One is it's a whitelisted tool. Others is it's possible to use PowerShell to get elevated access. Point number 3 is you can use PowerShell to make remote changes on your other systems in your network. Tons of free scripts on the internet, and there are a lot more reasons why PowerShell is actually a malicious tool, can be leveraged as a malicious tool in your network, right? Now, how do you audit PowerShell? If you jump onto your server, head into computer configuration, admin templates, Windows components. Inside your group policies, you will find a few options to enable PowerShell auditing, right? So you have to do this for not just your domain controller, but every other server in your network. And when you do that, what happens is whenever a user simply opens up a PowerShell session and tries to execute a script, right, or tries to run a few commands, your Windows event viewer, as you can see right here, will audit those logs, right? So when that happens, so where are the logs audited? Inside applications and services, inside Microsoft, Windows, and if you scroll all the way down, you've got something called PowerShell logs right here. Here you go, PowerShell, and you click on operational logs. Here is where you can find users who are executing the scripts, whether they're starting a command, whether they're executing scripts, whether they're executing a remote command. You get to know details such as that. And uh, this is great because Windows audits PowerShell events. That's wonderful. But what's the problem with these events, right? So here are a few problems with PowerShell auditing when it comes to Windows environments. Number one is there are a large volume of logs generated. So for a brute force attack like I just showed you, or for a password spray attack like I just showed you, there will be a lot of login events that will be generated, which makes it difficult to track if a PowerShell script was used for a password attack. Many applications in your network may use PowerShell for user enumeration or for service enumeration. Many users, like administrators in your network, may use PowerShell for legitimate reasons. Developers may use PowerShell, and you cannot search for specific scripts or specific commands that were invoked using these logs. You have to click, open and see what's happening here, which is very, very time consuming when it comes to auditing what's happening in PowerShell. And there are a few more limitations, right? For example, if you find out that a user is executing a PowerShell script, what would be your next step of action, right? So let's see how ADAudit Plus can help. If I head into ADAudit Plus, we've got something inside server audit. We've got something called PowerShell auditing right here, right? And here you go. We've got something called script block auditing, script block logging at first. So what is script block logging? Script block logging basically logs the entire code block or a function block within a script, right? So for example, if I click on details, now this is just a part of a script, but script block logging, if there is a script, if there is a function used within a script, script block logging basically records that entire code block, right? And what is module logging? How is module logging helpful for you? Module logging basically records commands, individual commands, or a string of commands that were executed by your end users. You get to know which user ran the command, you get to know what time the command was executed on, and you get to know what the command is, right? So you also can search based on a command. For example, you can say if there's anything get or if there's anything set that was run in PowerShell by any of your users who are not your administrators, you can get those details right here, right? So there are two reports here. One, script block logging for complete code block or function block auditing. If there's a function in a script that is being called, this report will audit that. Module logging for commands or strings of commands that your users execute. And if you head into the configuration tab, and if I click on create alert profile, you can create an alert profile for PowerShell right here, right? So you can add your PowerShell report right here. You can just select a report. You can say PowerShell audit right about here, and you can set up an alert, right? For example, you can set up an alert based on a user. You can set up an alert based on a command that was invoked. You can set up an alert based on this function block or a code block within a script. And once you set up an alert, the next time an end user runs a script, runs a command, you will automatically be alerted. The admins or the authorized users in your network will be alerted via email, via SMS, right? And not just that, if you find your users are executing PowerShell scripts, if you find that they're doing something malicious with PowerShell on your network, you can also have a remedial script right here. For example, if you find that your users are executing a script like the password spray attack that I just showed you, right? If you find your users are executing scripts like this, the alert will detect the script because you've set up a code block or a command invocation here, and you can set up a remedial action to terminate that user's session or shut down that user's computer, or even in harsh measures, disable that user's account, right? So the script that you configure here will do the remedial action for you. So this is the first use case I want to talk about. That is PowerShell auditing. The second thing I wanted to talk about was Azure AD password protection audit reports. Right now, the thing is, in most networks, in most organizations, we are adopting Azure AD alongside Active Directory. So let me show you an example right here. So inside my Azure AD console, so this is my Azure AD console. What's happening in networks is we are adopting cloud services more so now because we're all moving remote. We need to support our remote users. So public cloud services like Azure are now being adopted. And what are these reports? So these are password protection audit reports in ADAudit Plus. So what is this? This is a feature within Azure Active Directory, right? Using which you can ban the use or you can block the use of weak passwords, right? Now, what do I mean by that? How is this of use to you? For example, let's say your users, they use passwords like password at 123, or let's say they set their birth date or any other weak password like QWERTY as their password in your network, right? So what password protection does is it helps you enforce a custom banned password list. So the next time your users use a weak password like password at 123 or admin at 123 or laptop at 123, this protection in Azure will block the usage of that password, will ban the usage of that password, right? So you have a custom banned password list here that you can set up by yourself. Apart from this, Microsoft also offers a global banned list. Now, the global banned list is something that is provided by Microsoft. Nobody knows what the passwords are in it. But if your users use passwords that are a part of the global banned list, then they will not be allowed to use in Azure as well, right? So you can have your own list. And along with this, you can use Microsoft's global banned list as well. But again, we do not know what the passwords are in the global banned list. And you do need a premium license for this. So if you want to leverage this feature in Azure, do purchase an Azure P1 or a P2 premium license. And another important thing is this password protection can be set up for Active Directory as well. Because like I said, many Active Directory environments are connected to Azure. So once you enable password protection in AD, if your users use weak passwords, those weak passwords will be checked in the custom banned password list here and the global banned password list by Microsoft, and they will be blocked if your users use the weak passwords, right? So how does ADAudit Plus help you? Because yet again, a classic problem where there are a lot of logs that are produced. So you can check out your Azure AD password protection logs in this path right here inside your Windows event viewer, right? So what are these logs? These are logs where if your users are allowed to create the password because they actually used a strong password, then you'll have a log, right? If your users have failed to create a password because they used a password within the banned list, then they will not be allowed to proceed with it, right? So there are a bunch of logs right here that are recorded in this area of your event viewer, and you may have to audit these events across all your users in your environment. Any user who's connected to Azure, if you've deployed password protection, if your users are using weak passwords, and if you want to check how password protection is evaluating those passwords, if it's accepting them, if it's denying them, then these logs come in handy. And this is where ADAudit Plus can help as well. So if I head into ADAudit Plus reports, we've got something called Azure AD password protection. Over here, you can monitor your users. So if your users set a password on AD and they're allowed to use that password, then you get a success log right here, which you can monitor, right? If your users set a weak password in Active Directory and Azure AD password protection, this particular feature right here blocks the usage of that password, you get failure reports right here, right? So whenever passwords are changed, whenever passwords are set by administrators to end users, if they are checked by the Azure AD password protection. If they are accepted, if they are denied, no matter what the reason is, all those logs can be viewed from the report that you see right here, right? And of course, you can set up alerts for these events if you want to as well, right? The third thing I want to talk about was net logon channel audit in Windows devices. Now, I'm pretty sure many of you have heard of this, but you haven't. If you haven't heard of it, there is an attack that took place back in 2020. This attack, many organizations suffered with this attack. This is called the zero logon attack or the net logon attack. What's the zero logon attack? Why is it of importance to you? Now, the zero logon attack is basically when a client system, right, in an Active Directory environment, it authenticates with a server, right? So when a client system authenticates with a server, there is a protocol that's used called the net logon protocol, right? And there is a flaw within this protocol that allows attackers to impersonate any server on the domain. That's right. Attackers can log in to the domain controller, can log into your member servers with nothing but a bunch of zeros, right? So this is a flaw between client and domain controller authentication, where attackers can impersonate any server, log on to the servers with nothing but a bunch of zeros or null values as the password. If you want to learn more about this attack, I've written a very elaborate blog on this. So do take a look at it. So if you want to learn more, this blog will tell you everything you need to know. I've left a link for it in the chat window right about now. But let's see what we have in this attack, right? The first thing I would encourage you to do is to patch all your domain controllers as soon as possible. If you click on this, it will take you to the Microsoft patch guide. And using this patch, you can install it on all your Windows devices and your domain controllers, patch them from the zero logon attack, right? And to combat with this issue, Microsoft introduced a group policy option called Allow Vulnerable Net Logon Secure Channel Connection. Now, what's this connection? Why is this of importance to you? Now, the patch that we discussed right here can be applied to all devices in your network, but there are some non-compliant devices to which the patch cannot be applied to. And in those cases, Microsoft introduced a group policy option where you can define your devices right here, and they will be allowed to use the vulnerable net logon connection, right? So the first thing I would encourage you to do is deploy the patch, and for devices for which the patch cannot be applied to because they are non-compliant, you can set them up inside group policies and ensure only your authorized devices are using the vulnerable net logon connection, right? So how can ADAudit Plus help with this? So if I open up ADAudit Plus, inside ADAudit Plus, server audit, we've introduced a report here called net logon vulnerable channel audit, right? Now, why is this report useful? If any device in your network, right? If an attacker or if any user is trying to use the vulnerable net logon connection to impersonate any server on your network, it will be denied if you have applied the patches. So that's why I say update your patches as soon as possible. But you can monitor the denied connections from the report that you see right here, right? So if any device is trying to use this vulnerable zero logon attack or the net logon vulnerable channel, then you can catch that device right here and you can go and check what's wrong before it's too late, right? Patches will secure your environment, but it's also important for you to monitor anybody who's trying to leverage this flaw in your Active Directory network to impersonate your servers. Remember, you could impersonate your domain controllers as well. All the attacker needs to do is use a script and enter a password that is nothing but 0000, right? Now, there's another report here called Allowed Connection. So like I said, Microsoft introduced a group policy where you can define a few devices that are allowed, that are actually allowed to use this vulnerable connection. And this report will capture those devices. If you have a device in your group policies, and if that device is using a vulnerable connection, you can monitor those changes right here, right? If any device that you don't know is using a vulnerable connection and it's actually allowed to use that connection, it's something you might want to monitor as well, right? So two things here. Whenever a connection is denied from a machine, do look back on that machine. It could be an attacker trying to use this protocol to break into your network. If a device is used, the vulnerable net is allowed to use this vulnerable connection, then do ensure that that this device is authorized and not any third-party device that you have no idea about, that you don't know about, right? This is just another thing I wanted to talk about. The fourth new feature we have here is a user work hours report in ADAudit Plus, right? So why is this useful? You can access this from your reports tab, Active Directory, user work hours report. This is more from a business productivity front, right? Where you can monitor when your users are logging on, when your users are logging off, and how active your employees are in your network, right? So what this report basically does is it checks your users' workstation locks, your workstation unlocks, how long the workstation was unlocked, meaning how long the user was actively working on the workstation, and how long the workstation was just locked and not being used, right? So using the log, unlock, login, log off reports, you will be able to judge how productive your users are being in your network, right? So this is more from a business productivity front. You can monitor your employees. You can check when they logged in, when they logged off, how long they were active for, how long their system was just in the lock state and was not being used, and how many hours totally they were active for, right? So this report will be handy in that way. This would be difficult to do using the Windows Event Viewer because you have to check when each user is logging on, logging off, when they are locking or unlocking the systems. You have to compare all these logs and you have to understand what's happening. But ADAudit Plus simplifies this for you. ADAudit Plus does this in a way where you needn't go through all of these logs inside the security logs. You needn't monitor the logs, unlocks, logons, log off of all your users and check what's happening. ADAudit Plus fetches those reports for you automatically and gives you this report, as you can see right here, right? And how could you benefit from this? I'll give you one more example. If I head into the admin tab here, sorry, the configuration tab here, you can apologize. My system's a little bit slow here. No worries. If I head into the configuration tab here, sorry, the admin tab, you've got the technicians window right here, right? So what's going to happen is you can create a technician, right? And you could give the technician the ability to monitor your users log on and log off activities. Basically, your users' work hours inside the local log on log off reports right here, right? Now, how can you benefit from this? You can give a manager the ability to basically view when the members of their team are logging on, logging off, how long they have remained active for, right? So if you have a marketing department, if you have a design department, you can give the manager the ability to monitor the members of their team and check basically when they are logging on, when they are logging off, and you can basically create the manager as a technician and give him or her log on rights into ADAudit Plus, right? So like I said, there's more from a business productivity front. Create a manager, add him as a technician, give the technician the rights to view this report, and each manager in your company will now be able to monitor how active their employees are being, right? This could come in handy, especially now since we're all working from home. Now, another thing I want to talk about was advanced DNS reports. This is more from an administrator's perspective, not from a security perspective. Now, what happens is in environments, right? DNS is used, DNS records are used by your servers in your environment to basically find a particular service, right? So whenever you try to find a particular service, a DNS service in your environment, it asks the ISP's DNS server. The ISP's DNS server says, I don't know what it is, and it goes and checks the authority DNS server. The authority DNS server gives back the value which is sent to the ISP's DNS server and then back to the client system. And both the client system and the ISP's DNS server both store the DNS records or the values in their local memory, right? Now, why is this important? Why is this useful for you? What happens is in most environments, let me quickly show you an example right here. If I head on to my virtual machine, open up DNS. Oops, okay. Let me open up administrative tools. Just give me 1 second here, guys. And I'm going to look for DNS manager right here. So let me quickly search. Here we go. Here's DNS, right? So this is DNS manager. These are your forward lookup zones. These are your reverse lookup zones. And how are these? How is DNS reports in ADAudit Plus useful for you? What happens is there are records in every DNS server Active Directory environment. Some of them are static. Some of them expire at a given time. And once the records expires, your client system, they need to check back with the DNS servers and get the new records, right? Otherwise, your client system will not be able to contact the service that it's looking out for. So what happens in Active Directory environments is because most of these records are stored in cache, if the record expires for various reasons, like the timestamp has been changed, or if the record's IP address has been changed, whatever reason it be, if the record becomes invalid, then your client system will not be able to access that service, which is a problem, right? That's when the record needs to be deleted and replaced with a new record so your client system can contact the DNS server and get what it wants, right? So that's when Active Directory supports a concept called scavenging, right? Now, what is scavenging? How is it useful for you? So what happens in scavenging is when a record reaches its timestamp, right? When it becomes stale, it is deleted automatically. And once it is deleted, your client system gets a new record, a fresh record, so it can continue using that service without any obstruction, without any hindrance, right? You can set up scavenging on your DNS servers by right-clicking on it. And as you can see here, scavenge stale records, stale resource records, or set aging or scavenging for all zones. When you set up scavenging, your records automatically be replaced, will automatically be deleted whenever they reach their time to live, right? As you can see, these records end on this time. Whenever they reach this time, they will automatically be deleted by scavenging. So you have to set up scavenging in your network if you want to leverage this feature. And what we've done in ADAudit Plus is we've given you new reports, right? So let me quickly head down. You should find something called Advanced DNS Reports. Apologize. System is not responding. All right, let me quickly show that to you right now. Right. So under reports, scroll down, you've got something called Advanced DNS Server Audit that lets you audit your scavenging activity. So whenever records are scavenged or removed because they've expired, you get to audit that, right? And you get to audit whenever records are being replaced as well. Any other DNS changes like zone changes, DNS node changes, any changes like that. If your DNS service is stopped, abruptly stopped for whatever reason it may be, if your DNS servers are being auto-configured, for example, whenever new domain controllers are installed, they auto-configure the DNS service. So whenever any auto-configuration activity takes place, you can detect those changes right here. DNS servers can be integrated with Active Directory. Sometimes they function on their own. Whenever DNS servers are integrated with Active Directory and not functioning as individual units, you can record those changes here as well, right? Scavenging, important report for you to monitor stale records whenever they are removed, whenever they are scavenged, and other DNS-based changes like changes, any configuration permission changes, DNS service started or stopped, auto configuration. Whenever DNS service is auto configured by your mail clients or by your Active Directory domain controllers, you can audit those changes right here, right? So this is more from a technical administrative front, not from a security front. So these reports can now be leveraged as well, right? Another thing we've now specified in ADAudit Plus is Sysmon auditing reports, right? So for those of you who have not heard of Sysmon or who have no idea what Sysmon is Microsoft's something that Microsoft bought long ago. So if we just type in Sysmon, you can basically set up Sysmon on your Windows systems, right? And using Sysmon, you can detect malicious activities on your network, right? For example, if there is a process created, if there is a process that is injected in another process to evade detection, this could be an attack event. You can, record. You can leverage Sysmon events to record such processes, right? For example, here is an event that records process tampering, right? What attackers do is they create a process and they inject that process in another process in order to evade detection. And whenever a process is tampered, Sysmon will audit those activities for you. It can be accessed from application services, logs, Microsoft, Windows, Sysmon operations. This is the path inside the event viewer from which you can access Sysmon once you install Sysmon from the Microsoft website, right? Now, what ADAudit Plus does is earlier it only used to pick your Windows event logs or your EVTX or your EVT logs, as you can see here. Now, ADAudit Plus picks your Sysmon logs as well, right? So you can head into ADAudit Plus, you find something called Sysmon Auditing right here, over which you can track Sysmon logs. For example, uh, if any changes are being made to registry keys, right? If malware is added to a registry key, this happens in most environments where attackers add a malware to the run registry key. So the next time a user logs onto the system, the malware is executed. So whenever there's a virus or a malware added to a registry key to establish persistence, you can detect that right here. Whenever an attacker is trying to use Windows Remote Protocol or WMI protocol to inject changes into other systems in a network, then this report will come in handy. Whenever there are clipboard changes, what happens in most attacks is attackers try and extract data from the clipboard. So this is your Windows clipboard, right? What happens in most cases is you copy passwords, you copy important information. Attackers try and extract information from the clipboard as an attempt to break into your environment. There could be passwords, there could be credit card numbers. Whenever that happens, this report will audit that for you. File operations is just one more example here where attackers change the time of a file to the time when you install the operating system just to make it look like an original file and not a malicious file, right? So this is when attackers tamper with the timing of a file just so it looks genuine. And Sysmon auditing reports is a way for you to detect all these malicious activities in your environment. You needn't just depend on your Windows event logs. Now you can depend on Sysmon logs as well. Sysmon is free. Just get it from the Microsoft website, install it, and these reports will come in handy for you to detect attacks on your environment or attack attempts on your environment, right? Most cases, attackers try to shut down the Sysmon service, and whenever that happens, you can detect those changes here with the reports here as well. All of this, of course, can be alerted upon if need be, right? So these logs essentially are easier to detect malware compared to Windows security logs, something that will come in handy for you, right? So we've got a few more reports here, a few more new reports. If you haven't checked them out, inside ADAudit Plus, inside the reports tab, we've got user logon reports, and inside there we have a report called logon failures. Right. So let me quickly show you an example of the report here. So if I click on reports, I apologize, my internet is surprisingly slow today. So how are logon failures reports useful? So one thing we don't monitor in our environments is logon failures, right? Because it's very difficult to monitor when users log on, when users log off, when there's a failure, if a user is causing multiple failures, if multiple users are causing multiple failures across servers, it's difficult to track. This is when the logon failures report comes in handy for you. I'm pretty sure many of you have already used it. But now what we do here is we analyze the reason behind the logon failure, right? So if the logon failure was due to any service, any application, any scheduled task that is using the user's expired credentials or stale credentials, you get to know the information. If the logon failure was due to a recent logon on the system, a local logon, you get those informations as well. If the logon failure was due to any other third-party service like Outlook Web Access or ActiveSync, or if you use a network policy server or a radius server, you get to detect that as well, right? So how is this report useful for you? Whenever a user's logon fails on a domain, you get to know the reason behind the logon failure. If it is a process that is using the user's expired or stale credentials, if it is a genuine failure, or if it is an attack attempt, like the password spray attack I just showed you. So you can monitor logon failures across all of your domains, and you can get to know why a logon failure has occurred, whether it's genuine or whether it's malicious. So the next time your users logon failure occur, do monitor this and do ensure that the logon failure was genuine, right? Similarly, we offer something called, if I head into user management, we offer something called account logout analyzer. The same logic as the logon failure analyzer report, but over here, we let you know why an account got locked out on your domain, right? Now, in many cases, we get calls from the admin, from the help desk, asking us to, we get many, the admins and help desks, I'm sorry, get many calls from the employees asking them to unlock their accounts because they've forgotten their password and for many other reasons. And what the logon failure analyzer does, what the account logout analyzer does, I'm so sorry, is it checks the reason behind the account logout failure, right? Just like the logon failure report, the account logout analyzer checks if the account got logged out because a Windows service or a scheduled task was using stale credentials or outdated passwords, or if it is a password attack, right? So two reports, same functions, but the account log analyzer helps you uh, track down why an account lockout has occurred in your environment, right? So the next time your user calls you asking you to reset the password or change the password, before you do that, ensure you check why the account got locked out, whether it's genuine, whether it's malicious, before you actually let them, before you actually, reset the password and give the user the new password, right? Similarly, monitor your logon failures, check why a logon failures has occurred, whether it's genuine, whether it's malicious. Extremely useful to detect attack attempts on your environment. All right. So yes, we've increased support to a wider range of devices. These are about the new features, all the new features we discussed so far. Let's talk about how we've increased support, how we made ADAudit Plus more scalable, more accessible to more devices. And we now support Hitachi, Nash, and Huawei Ocean Store storage auditing. So if you head into ADAudit Plus, click on File Audit. Here you see Huawei Ocean Store, you check Hitachi Nash. So these are two new file servers that we audit in your environments now. If you do use these, the next time your files are changed, modified, permissions are changed, files are moved, files are deleted without your notice, we will audit them across these two newly supported devices as well. Of course, you can just click on the question mark, it will take you to a help document. And over here, you can see how to set up Ocean Store auditing or even your Hitachi Nash auditing in your environment, right? So that's something new we support right now. ADAudit Plus now supports single sign-on as well. Now we've heard from many customers that, hey, we use single sign-on like Okta, One Login, we use Active Directory Federation services, and we still have to enter a password in ADAudit Plus each time when we log on. Can ADAudit Plus be connected to this single sign-on service? The answer to that question now is yes, we do support that. So if I open this up, click into the admin tool, log on settings, admin tab, log on settings, single sign on right here. Just check the box, and we support SAML authentication for Okta, One Login, Ping Identity, ADFS, and some custom single sign on providers as well, right? So when your users, well, they log on to their network joint system, to their Active Directory domain joint system, they needn't enter a password in ADAudit Plus again, right? They will be auto logged on to ADAudit Plus. So as soon as they hit the URL, they'll be auto logged on to ADAudit Plus without having to enter a password one more time, all right? So We made ADAudit Plus more secure. Like I said, many companies, they're worried about ADAudit Plus's security, about the software's security. So we made ADAudit Plus a lot more secure as of now. For example, we now support two-factor authentication for any logons into ADAudit Plus, right? So let me quickly show you that right here. If I click on the admin tab, two-factor authentication, if you enable it, the next time your users, they log on to ADAudit Plus, then the two-factor authentication method that you've set up will definitely kick in, right? So whether your admins log on to ADAudit Plus, whether your technicians that you've created, that you've given certain privileges in ADAudit Plus, they attempt to log on to ADAudit Plus, the two-factor authentication method will kick in. This is just so you can double check the logons to ADAudit Plus. No random user can log on to ADAudit Plus just with the password. They will have to undergo two-factor authentication. This is just for added security to ensure that ADAudit Plus is used for legitimate purposes and for nothing else, right? Not for any malicious or wrongful purposes, right? ADAudit Plus now uses digital code signing. So what's that? How is that useful? So digital code signing is a way when ADAudit Plus is installed on your system, there is a private public key mechanism that goes on and encryption that goes on, where ADAudit Plus checks if it is from us, if it is from the authorized service provider or authorized vendor, that's managed engine, and not any malicious software on the internet, right? So when your users, they install ADAudit Plus, you can ensure that uh, when you install ADAudit Plus, when you update ADAudit Plus, you can ensure that everything is from us and nobody else, because we use digital code signing right now. So there are no malicious ADAudit Plus installations on the internet or third-party ADAudit Plus installations on the internet that can be used by attackers to include inside your environment, right? Just a way to ensure all ADAudit Plus installations are extremely secure and are from authorized vendors. That's us, Manage Engine. All right. So we've introduced a few more changes into ADAudit Plus. Now, if you head into file integrity monitoring, right? For those of you who haven't heard of file integrity monitoring, this is a way where you can basically monitor your core system file and folders, like program files 86, your system root file and folder, your C drive, any your core security system files and folders can be monitored across your domain controllers, your member servers, your workstations. And what we do now is we audit these file locations by default, right? Because these are your root or your core system files and folders. These must be monitored for changes. So earlier you had to set them up yourself, but now we automatically audit these locations for any security changes. You can, of course, uncheck it if you don't want it, right? So these are just a few improvements that we made. Speaking about Azure AD auditing right here, there are a lot of reports that we've given here just for your Azure AD environments. Like I said, many of you all are adopting Azure alongside Active Directory. So Azure AD auditing, we've improved it a lot. For example, you can monitor logon activities. Let me quickly show you an example here. Uh, Azure AD, logon activities. You can monitor logon activities across AD and across Azure environments, right? So I'm just going to give this a few seconds to load. Right? So yeah, let me quickly refresh this, log back in. Reports, Azure AD reports. You've got certain logon activity reports here that lets you monitor logon activities in Azure, as the name suggests. But I'm sad I'm not able to show you this. Oh, here we go. All right. So what more these reports offer for you is it offers on-premise information, right? For example, if the user is in AD and is synchronized to Azure or is connected to Azure, you get to know the user's on-premise details as well, which is useful for you to detect any password attempts, password attack attempts. For example, just like the password spray attack I showed you, right? a user can log on to an Active Directory endpoint and launch an attack in Azure Active Directory, right? On the Azure Active Directory console. When that happens, you have to monitor Active Directory logons, you have to monitor Azure logons, you have to correlate them to understand if an attacker is trying to compromise Azure from Active Directory, right? So that's when getting users on-premise details as well as Azure details come in handy. We've got something called hybrid logon activity here that lets you monitor your cloud logon attempts and your on-premise logon attempts. Again, useful in hybrid environments where you use cloud and on-premise AD together. We've got logon activity by applications here. Now, one way to log on to Azure is using inside the Azure AD portal right here. But Azure supports many applications as well, like Office 365 Suite, Office 365 Exchange Online. You can log into Azure via PowerShell as well. And when you do that, you can monitor the total success, logon successes, total logon failures in Azure Active Directory as well, right? So not just Azure AD logons, we monitor multiple other ways that you can log on to Azure via multiple applications as well. So there are lots of reports here. For example, if a user logon was a success, but the multi-factor authentication was a failure, you have to monitor such reports, right? Azure Active Directory does not offer such reports, but we offer such reports for you. There are many reports here that can help you better audit your Azure environment that I would encourage you to check out right now. Right? So we audit firewall group policy settings. Now, in most cases, what can happen is uh, firewalls settings can be made on a domain level, right? So you can change inbound rules, outbound rules on a domain level. So whenever that happens, it's important that you monitor firewall changes that are happening via group policies, right? So next, we audit something called security option settings right here within Active Directory. This is just another group policy setting that can give your users more access than they need. For example, if guest account is access is enabled on your domain, then guests can log on to your domain, right? That's something you'd like to avoid. If I head further down, there are a few more useful things that you can use here. For example, do you see this named shares? Do you see this? Let everyone permissions apply to anonymous users. Anonymous users are users in Active Directory that can log into Active Directory without a password. Now, when they log into Active Directory without a password, there will be no track of what they're doing in Active Directory. So that's something you might want to track. And this group policy right here applies anonymous permissions where everyone users have permissions, right? So you know the everyone security principle. So whenever your everyone users, they have permissions on your AD domain, the anonymous users also have access to those areas, which is something you'd not like because anonymous users are basically invisible access to your Active Directory environment. You cannot track who the anonymous user is, right? Similarly, you see something called shares that can be accessed anonymously here. These are network shares that can be accessed by users who are anonymous. Again, these users cannot be tracked. If users are accessing shares anonymously, if they're making changes to shares anonymously, that's something you may want to look into. So there are a lot more security features here that must be monitored whenever they're enabled or disabled or even left in the unconfigured state. And we now audit security options in ADAudit Plus as well. So head into ADAudit Plus, Active Directory, you've got your group policy setting changes reports right here. And as you can see over here, we audit group policy security options changes as well, right? What's more, now, if you head into ADAudit Plus, click on domain settings, uh, you can now install an agent on a domain controller, right? Why is this useful? Earlier, we used to fetch events from the domain controllers directly. Agents were only used for your member servers or your workstations, etc. But now we use agents for your Active Directory controllers as well. So if you want to install an agent, you can install it. And how does this help you? If you have multiple domain controllers spread across WAN connections in different geographical locations, installing an agent will smoothen out the event log fetching process, right? Earlier, ADAudit Plus used to contact the domain controller in order to fetch the agent, but in environments who have multiple domain controllers across multiple locations scattered across a WAN network, then installing an agent will make the process of log fetching more smoother, more faster, and the bandwidth used to fetch the logs from domain controllers into ADAudit Plus will be more smooth, right? ADAudit Plus events can now be forwarded to your SIM solutions if you have one. So if you want to forward ADAudit Plus solution to Splunk, ArcSight, you can simultaneously forward ADAudit Plus's reports to all of these SIM solutions simultaneously. There are a lot more changes that we have brought in. For example, in ADAudit Plus, sometimes you need to give in a few settings in order to ADAudit Plus to work properly, but we made that easier for you, right? So for example, whenever an agent is installed to get data from an endpoint, from a workstation, if your server IP address is correct, but your server name is wrong or your DNS is wrong, it will still work. Or if your server name is correct, but your IP is wrong or your DNS is wrong, it will still work. So we made things a little more simpler for you so you can conserve time when configuring things in ADAudit Plus. For example, when your network shares, right, the locations are changed. Let's say you moved from one location, one path to another, ADAudit Plus will still audit these shares just to make things simpler for you, right? So there are a lot more. For example, if I head into ADAudit Plus configuration, the admin report right here, you see scheduled reports. Now, when you schedule reports, what happens is the reports are sent via email to the respective users in your network. They're also stored on a local path on your server. Now you can search the report you need, so you can instantly find the reports that you want, right? You needn't check through all the reports. Just a search will give you what you need. Similarly, when you archive events in ADAudit Plus and when you restore or when you attempt to restore the archived events, let me quickly show you what's happening here. The admin tab, restore archive events, right? So when you archive events in ADAudit Plus, they are stored in a location that looks something like this. When you restore the archive events, what we do now is we let you filter the archived events, right? Whether they are loaded back into ADAudit Plus, whether they have been removed and archived into this location, whether they are being loaded into ADAudit Plus or whether they are being unloaded from ADAudit Plus to your local archive location, we let you filter through those changes just so things become more simpler for you, right? So with respect to working with ADAudit Plus, the existing features, we've made things a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more simpler and easier to work with, right? So there are a lot of changes that we made. These are just the important ones that I discussed about today. Because of the time constraint, we are unable to run through all the changes. But if you click on the release notes, everything that we've introduced in ADAudit Plus will be available in the release notes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly leave a link to the release notes in the chat window. So do take a look at it. Every change in ADAudit Plus that we've newly added is all in the release notes. You can also update ADAudit Plus right from the release notes. All right. So that is about it for today. So we looked into new features of ADAudit Plus. We looked into new support in ADAudit Plus, which devices ADAudit Plus now newly supports. We've looked into how ADAudit Plus became more secure. We've also looked into the existing features and how we enhanced them, how we made them more user-friendly and simpler to work with in ADAudit Plus. Right? So that is about it for today. Before I wrap up with today's session, what I'm going to do now is I'm quickly going to launch a poll. Now, within the next 1 second, you're going to find a question flash across your screen. This is just for our internal team. So just a minute of your time, if you can help me out with the answers, that would be very, very helpful. Just 1 more minute of your time, and I promise I will be out of your hair. Oh, guys, for those of you who've been asking me for copies of the session for the recording, please do not worry. I will ensure that the slide deck and the recording are sent to your respective email addresses. So please don't worry about that. Just a day or two, I promise the recording will reach to your email addresses. Do hold on, guys. Just give me one more minute because I have something to show you towards the end that you may benefit out of. So just give me one more minute. Thank you for your responses. I would love to hear your thoughts, guys. Any way you think I can improve, anything new you'd like me to cover, if you'd like me to go faster, slower, please do let me know, and I'll do my best to implement it in my upcoming sessions. Thank you for your responses, much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your responses. Guys, again, do not worry about the recordings. Do not worry about the slide decks. They will be shared with you. Just give me 1 or 2 days time and they will be shared with you. Thank you so much for your responses. Okay, great. So guys, one final uh, request from you, something I wanted to share with you. So what we are doing now is we are conducting an Active Directory survey. So how the survey helps is it helps us understand your security perspective about Active Directory. So there are just about 12 to 13 questions here. If you could just select the answers, let us know. We are working on it. So how can you benefit out of this is after we get the results of the survey from all of you guys, we will conduct a webinar, an exclusive webinar for just you guys so you can improve Active Directory security. You can improve any application like Azure connected to Active Directory, how you could improve its security. So basically, based on the answers we collect from the survey, we will conduct an exclusive webinar using which you can benefit from to improve Active Directory security, and not just security, but also improve Active Directory administration. So this is something we are planning for in the future. Based on your answers, we will create the webinar, we will create the slide deck. So this will be a webinar that will just be catered to you because it will be completely based on your feedback and on your answers. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm quickly going to leave a link to that survey in the chat window. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Do check it out. Do fill it up when you have the time. And about the webinar, once we decide to schedule it, we'll personally drop an email to you so you can attend the webinar. And we hope that webinar will come in useful for you. Right? So do take your time, fill in the survey whenever you can, whenever you find the time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. And yes, have a wonderful rest of your day. I do see a few questions coming in. Please do not worry. I will get back to you on an email with the answers to all the questions that you asked in today's sessions. So please do not worry about that. Just give me a few hours and you will receive a reply on your email addresses. But until then, thank you, take care, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.